news. This episode is on the two V's, which have been dominating our lives the last couple of years. And in the past I've tried to do something about these subjects, but it's always been banned and taken off pretty quickly, and threatened to have my platform taken down because this is a subject you're not really allowed to comment on. But I thought I'd give it another go this time because I might have a different angle that they haven't. I'm also going to touch on one of my favourite subjects about Bill Gates being a psychopath. It's about time to get back into him because he is a piece of shit. Okay. A piece of shit masquerading as a saviour. First up, though, breaking news that Pfizer, the head of Pfizer, actually never tested to see if the vaccines actually stop you getting, passing it on for transmission of that. There was actually, come out. This is hot off the press. Basically, this basically takes away the justification for fucking everything they did. The vaccination passport, the mandatory vaccinations, and the result of them, the healthy people getting excluded from events and from society, basically, and it was all based on a fucking lie. So what do you make of that? Check this out.
Was the Pfizer COVID vaccine tested on stopping the transmission of the virus before it entered the market? If not, please say it clearly. If yes, are you willing to share the data with this committee? And I really want a straight answer, yes or no, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Regarding the question around, did we know about stopping immunisation before it's entered the market? No. We had to really move at the speed of science to really understand what is taking place in the market.
This is scandalous. Millions of people worldwide felt forced to get vaccinated because of the myth that you do it for others. Now, this turned out to be a cheap lie. This should be exposed.
So, this was allowed to happen because of human beings' understanding of germs and bacteria and viruses altogether is totally wrong. And I know it's going to sound weird coming from me, like some musician, concreter dude that's got a doctorate in that, but really, anyone can learn anything if you study it. It's not beyond anyone else's fucking abilities what other people could do. If you just put yourself, study shit and they'll learn. Anyone can fucking learn. Anyway, I learned that about terrain theory, which is probably the real basis for biology instead of like germ theory. The germ theory actually rips off terrain theory, but if you read the book The Third Element of the Blood by Antoine Béchamp, then you'll actually see that the germ theory actually proves itself wrong with its own statistics. It's like, it's nuts. So viruses are part of our immune system. They basically are the toxic fucking liquid that our bodies secrete in order to eat dead cell tissue, and then we sweat that out while we're sick. That's, the process of that actually happening is what makes us sick. So, that is... So terrain theory basically states that we get sick from our surroundings. Like, if the air is poisonous, the water we drink, the food we eat, anything we put into our bodies, that's what makes us sick and unwell. Whereas germ theory says it's little bugs out there that you catch. Little bugs that they don't even know where they come from. They don't know where they originated from. They don't know how they survive out there. They don't know anything about them, yet they can make these massive claims. Yet, if you actually just look at the virus being like a part of our immune system, everything actually fits in. So I'm going to go through what they believe here. This is all that bullshit. This is complete rubbish what I'm about to fucking show you. That's why it's called the fake news. But I'll do a little commentary and I'll point out why.
It's suggested that while viruses don't occupy their own branch of the tree of life, they might be thought of as like vines that wrap around it, which is an elegant image, if also maybe a little creepy one. Here, they're in our DNA. They make us sick, sometimes very badly. So there's no denying that they have a place in the greater picture of what life on Earth is like, for good or for ill.
See, right there, they basically admit it. They're in our DNA and they make us sick.
The key to the virus's success is their simplicity. In general, they consist of a bit of genetic information, either DNA or RNA, wrapped in a capsule of protein. Many are small, of course, on the order of tens of nanometers, while others are surprisingly big. But they all rely on infecting some sort of host to reproduce and survive. We think that viruses have been around as long as life itself, partly because they can infect all forms of life.
Isn't it funny that viruses have been around ever since life itself has been around? So that goes to say it's a part of life. So why do these idiots think it needs a cure? It's like, it doesn't make any sense. Think about it. For something to be able to infect something else, it needs to be alive, and they can't even fucking prove that a virus is alive. Like, it's it doesn't even meet the basic criteria, which science itself has a consensus that for an organism to be called living, it needs to pass a certain amount of tests, right? And as you can see, the virus does not.
Is generally universally agreed that life can reproduce, make energy for itself, maintain a stable environment within its cells, and it can evolve, among other things. So viruses can reproduce, but not on their own. And we've already talked about how viruses can evolve, but they have no way to produce energy, and they can't control their internal environments. And that's why they occupy such a gray area. Because the answer to some questions is yes, and others,
Okay, that's not a fucking grey area. That's fucking failed to fucking identify as a living thing. It has to meet all the criteria. I can't just meet a couple of them and then say, oh, well, you know, I got pretty close, so let's just call it a grey area. No, it failed. It failed to meet the criteria, so it's not a living thing. They won't admit that. They just dance around it and like move on as they do. They just glaze over it with a few little fucking little tidbits, and yeah, that's good enough for fucking the average idiot to fucking accept as truth.
viruses have to infect a host cell to access the machinery that it uses to replicate its DNA, and then hijack that machinery in order to reproduce. Which is like, when I say it out loud, such a scumbag move. The host cell is forced to manufacture new viruses, which then leave and look for new hosts to infect. Except, the viruses and the host don't always exactly part ways entirely. Sometimes the genome of the virus can become integrated into the DNA of the host. All this means that the viral gene will be preserved, though not perfectly, for way, way longer than a virus that's just floating around out there.
A virus floating around on its own does not exist. It's impossible. A virus cannot exist without its cell. Like, it cannot exist outside of a cell. Like, you know, it's fucking, there's the fragments that come out when you sweat into like the liquid, or these droplets they say, that's fucking basically fucking, that's residue of the fucking shit that used to be in your body. But they've never actually found a virus that floats around by itself out there. Actually, they've never actually identified a virus. Did you know that? They're so small, they can't even see them. So the thing they're saying that exists, these parasitic fucking things that infect us, they can't even prove they exist, let alone that they're alive, or that they fucking do anything that they say they can do. Come on, just think about it. Think.
It's been estimated that 8% of the human genome includes sequences that originally came from viruses. So paleovirology has helped us date the evolution of viruses back hundreds of millions. Fossil record of viruses in the conventional sense. They're just too small and fragile to be preserved in rock. But there are fossils of viruses of sorts preserved in the DNA of the host that they've infected, including you. Circoviruses are a group of viruses that are known to cause stomach problems in dogs. And scientists once thought that circoviruses had been around for less than 500 years. But traces of these viruses have been found in the genomes of dogs and also cats and even pandas. So the viruses must date back to before those mammals last shared a common ancestor, which might be as much as 68 million years ago in the late Cretaceous period.
Yeah, so viruses have been around as long as the animals have, okay?
So what's the oldest evidence of viruses? Well, one study in 2011 looked at the history of brachyviruses, which specifically infect wasps. And it found evidence to suggest that the group these viruses belong to could be as old as insects themselves, dating back to the Carboniferous period, 310 million years ago.
And even insects have their own form of virus, because it's a function of the body of everybody, of every fucking living thing on the planet has this same function. That's why they're finding traces in the DNA of these things since these things have been around. It's the only thing that actually fucking makes sense, really. If you think here, this idiot tries to say there's 3 possible scenarios that can explain why why viruses have been around for as long as life has, and not one of them actually mentions the terrain theory, which is because it just would blow the whole thing out the water. But isn't it funny how the most logical thing they don't even fucking touch on? They don't even say as a theory that this could be part of our immune system. Fucking why is that? Why is that, you wonder? Because there's no money in that, is there? There's no money in curing something that can't be cured. Fucking hell.
One model is known as the virus first model, and it holds that since viruses are so much simpler than cellular life, they must have evolved first. This would mean that viruses are older than the oldest single-celled organisms. They'd be relics of a time when all life was made up of simple, self-replicating units, probably made of RNA, which preyed on more complex life forms as they evolved.
A lot of probablys and maybes in that fucking scenario, isn't there? In all the scenarios, actually, there's a lot of presumption. You gotta listen to the language they use. They use it very carefully. They say the words carefully, that they're never actually sort of admitting to anything. Lots of probablys, lots of maybes, like scientists assume. It's not fucking science, is it? It's just guesswork. They're guessing.
But there's also what's known as the escape hypothesis. This model suggests that viruses evolved after cells did, from within their own genes. You see, our genomes contain pieces that can actually copy and paste themselves from one part of our DNA to another. So, some experts think that if one of those pieces became able to make itself a nice coat of protein, it could easily escape the cell and become a virus.
Now that scenario relies on the virus somehow escaping, a thing that's not alive, it can think of itself, somehow escaping and finding itself a nice coat of protein to start a new fucking way of life. Come on. That's not a scenario. That's just that's a fantasy. That's what that is. That's something that could, my God, I can't believe that this is actually like fucking This is what most people think. It's ridiculous.
The third model hinges on the discovery of so-called giant viruses. The first one, discovered in 2003, was named virus, short for mimicking microbe. And these things are huge by virus standards. They're about 750 nanometers across. That's bigger than some bacteria. Now, fortunately, they only infect amoebas, so you don't have to worry about them, at least yet. Now, viruses have way more genes than normal viruses do, including some genes that can be used to make protein, which viruses are not supposed to be able to do. But viruses still depend on their host to reproduce. So what are all those extra genes doing in there? Some scientists think those genes are leftovers from a time when some groups of viruses were bigger, more complex, and more like cellular life. So this model suggests that viruses were once free living and then developed a symbiotic relationship with another organism.
And that model is the stupidest of them all, because as we have already determined, viruses are not living things, so how could they be once free living that actually bonded with a fucking symbiotic fucking partnership and then turned into a parasite? What a ridiculous thing. This is, okay, that's their whole fucking, that's everything they think. That's, yeah, that's, they can't even agree on the fucking what they think, and yet they fucking don't even fucking want to consider that maybe, actually they do want to consider, they know the truth. That's the thing, they do this on purpose. This is about making money, and this is about control. They could fucking heal the world if they want to from everything, but they choose not to, because there's no profit in it. That's the fucking truth.
I know other.
Major players behind this deception is our good friend Bill Gates, and if you can remember his computer viruses that he invented, they infect other software. Like, they've actually put it in your head by calling that a virus. They've actually put it in your head. That's how viruses act. Like, it's not though. They've done that. This is done very purposely. Now Bill Gates is in health. Everyone assumes he knows what he's talking about because a virus. Like, yeah, but can't you see what he's done here? I mean, listen to this guy. He just talks so much shit. And by the way, the 5G towers there. This is what links them up. This is how they actually gather information about your health. This is why they went up during the first lockdown. You know.
Yeah, there's only one country that got past 1% infection and then got it to zero, which is South Korea. Used an extreme form of contact tracing, where without even asking your permission, they would look, using the cell tower data and see where you'd been, and they were pretty ruthless about how they enforced their contact tracing.
Bill's had this plan for a fucking long time. Like, this has been in play for a very long time, since he was back in college. Like, listen to him here. This is a little talk he did like 10 years ago, and this is him talking about the rise of computers and how they've affected our lives and shit like that. You know, and you can actually see where it's headed.
And nobody thought of it as a tool of empowerment. And it really took an amazing breakthrough in chip technology. The idea of putting at first thousands and eventually millions, and in the future billions of chips, of transistors on a single chip, to get this idea that computers could become a tool for the individual. And today I think we very much take it for granted. You know, certainly when I want to look up what's new in some area of science, medicine, I want to look up something about history, I just take it for granted that I can go and type in a few simple search terms and immediately be connected up with the information that comes from the very best experts in the world. And one of the unique things that Microsoft, myself and Paul Allen had in mind was that we wanted to have a software layer that would hide the hardware differences and allow people to invest in software applications knowing that they could be used across all those machines. In fact, the goal was to create this virtuous cycle that as more applications became available, more people would buy these machines, and as more people bought them, the economies of scale would allow the prices to come down, creating a thriving personal computer and software business.
See, this is his business model. If you can see, he's still using the same business model, except he's just changed the product. Humans are the product now, and the vaccine, and he still treats it like a business. How can you think this guy cares about your health? He cares about fucking making money. He always has. He's invested in just about every fucking thing you possibly can to make money. He does not care about health. He doesn't give a shit about little African kids, or little Indian kids, or your fucking kids, okay? Get that through your head. This guy's fucking dangerous. He's a psychopath.
Well, there are a lot of diseases, over 80% of the difference of why a poor child is 20 times more likely to die than a child in a middle-income country. It's these infectious diseases. It's diarrhea, pneumonia, malaria, and then there's a few adult diseases which are way more prevalent in poor countries, TB, HIV. And we've taken on as a central mission, it's a little bit over half of what we do, is to get rid of those diseases. And so that'll remain our priority until we're basically done with those. And those are tough enough that I'd expect it'll take us 30 to 40 years to really be done with those.
Okay, so I better wrap this up because it's getting a bit long now, and I know people can't handle anything that's too long. So yeah, so I hope this has been informative and enlightening. It is actually everything I've said here is true. So please look into it. Read the book, Third Element of the Blood by Antoine Béchamp. Get your head around what's actually happening, and I was take you out on just a little one more thing with Bill Gates, telling people what we did in Australia. Tell me, we never did this in Australia. The guy is so full of shit. He pretty much just makes up shit on the spot. He's fucking, anyway, so, okay, Australia, remember, here's Bill Gates telling you how we did things. Good night. This is The Fake News with G-Luv. Subscribe to my YouTube channel.
Australia almost got it right. They're down at 10% of the deaths, per capita of the United States. And they had practiced a little bit with the previous the SARS-CoV-1 had made them think, gosh, our public labs can't do diagnostics. We have to team up with these commercial PCR machine people. And that's how we'll be able to find the cases and isolate them and avoid that big slope.